And reports. Does anyone have anything they'd like to report on before we begin our discussion about our meeting dates? Go ahead, Ms.
Madam
Felton.
Chair, I would like to take this moment to address the board at this time. First of all, I'd like to thank Madam Chair Anderson for giving a brief justification of my absence of the September 6th school board meeting. But I was sent a few emails regarding my absence, as it's around a very important vote, and I would be remiss if I didn't respond to the public concerns. This was my first only absence in 971 days serving the Virginia Beach School Board. With that said, I also served on the Virginia Beach Historic Preservation Board. The same evening, September the 6th, there was a public hearing for the issue concerning the Confederate statues in our city. As the Historic Preservation Commissioner and facilitator for the public hearing, I had to attend that meeting. It was my intention to leave the hearing and make my way to the school board meeting if time would have allowed. Based on the following facts and my decision to volunteer and serve on the Deferred Comp Ad Hoc Committee, with some deliberation, my vote was yes to grant Dr. Spence the benefit of this deferred comp. This decision to give Dr. Spence the benefit of the deferred comp was thoroughly discussed and weighed from many perspectives. Because we value the concerns and thoughts of our colleagues, and because the first proposal wasn't well received, the ad hoc committee called another special meeting to research and reevaluate the first proposal. After viewing the facts, separating our personal aspirations, and with deliberation, we decided that we would move forward with granting the benefit of the deferred comp. Contrary to the perceptions of a small few that the Virginia Beach City Public School Board is dysfunctional, I would beg to differ. We are getting things done, and we are moving forward and tackling some really tough yet important concerns within our community. As a board, whether all agree or have difference of opinion or concern certain issues, I believe that each of us individually and collectively work to exemplify these beliefs, to put students first, seek growth, be open to change, do great work together, and value differences. Thank you for that minute, Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Felton. Is there anyone else that has anything that they'd like to bring forward at this time? Okay, the next thing on our agenda is the bylaw regarding school board meeting dates, and it's one of those things that we wanted to discuss, try to have a little discussion about, to see if we would consider changing our dates from the first and third Tuesday to the second and fourth Tuesday. And just as a reminder, we have done that for the month of October. We're going to be meeting, just as a reminder, so everybody has it fresh in their mind that October is a little different. We are meeting on the second and fourth Tuesdays in October this year. And the first meeting of November is not on a Tuesday, because the first meeting of November is scheduled for November 8th, which is the day after the election, because we normally do not meet on election day. So just to remind everybody. But I'm throwing this open for discussion about possibly moving our meeting days, or so. If anybody would like to speak to that, I'm open now. Let me know. Ms. McLeod, you were first.
I'm happy to move. I just would like to know sooner rather than later, as I've mentioned, just for scheduling purposes and those kind of things. I think the benefit of still meeting on a Tuesday is that it still allows us to do the workshops with the city council, but it's not on their official night. And I think it's a handful of people that would go to both, but if that handful deserves the opportunity to do so. So I think it's fine by me.
Okay, Ms. Weems.
Same. I think it's a good idea, and it doesn't seem like it would inconvenience us, and it would give those people a chance to tune in or attend in person. So I think we should do it.
So I'm pretty sure that we could still plan on meeting jointly with City Council on, because they have workshops
on those
Scheduled
days.
workshops
Exactly.
on those
That's
days.
what doesn't
Right.
cause a conflict that way.
Anyone else? Yes, Ms. Wright. Okay.
So I did a little inquiring, and apparently it's been since 2008 that this situation presented itself when city council changed which 2 days their formal meetings would take place, so I'm throwing that out. I didn't know if it would be prudent, because I wanted to wait to I don't want to be premature with this, but if it would be prudent to ask senior staff for what an abridged schedule would look like. Because just looking ahead to like December where there's Christmas and November where there's Thanksgiving, I mean, I'm sure all this could be worked out, but that was the only thing I was gonna suggest.
Oh,
To see what the revised schedule would look like over a 12-month period.
Yeah, we'd have
It's
to
like-
look at it.
I'm sorry?
We'd have to look at it. I think it probably would be like it is now, which is when you run into some of those conflicts, you just adjust. And for example, the election day shift that we had to do, put it on a Wednesday instead of a Tuesday. And I think that comes up from time to time with different holidays. And so, like Veterans Day, I think every now and then pops up as an issue for us. So, anyway, we would just need to take a couple calendars and give you some examples of that.
Right, because like Christmas in December would be the 4th week. And another issue that came up was your estimate of needs, when that's typically presented the first week of February. So would it be an issue pushing it to the 2nd week, or would it have to be a week before? So I just wanted to raise those issues.
Good questions. Yep.
thank you. Thank you for bringing that up, Ms. Weems.
And when do you think this will begin? Will it begin before January, or like
I wouldn't think so. However, it is, it's a bylaw change.
right?
We have to, and so at this point, if the consensus of this group tonight is to go forth with this, then what we would do is we would then send it to the policy committee to write a new bylaw, and then they would bring it for information. And then after that, the following meeting, then we would vote. So I don't look at to change this year. I'm thinking calendar year January, starting in January. Ms. Rye?
A question for, I guess, Dr. Spence, is that sufficient time for staff?
Well,
That seems pretty,
The one person I want to get some feedback from on that is Farrell, because if we did it in January, that is going to impact this year's budget cycle. So we haven't
Okay.
had that dialogue yet. So I want to have that conversation before I can give an answer to that. I think everything else we could manage, but the budget calendar, which is actually coming up tonight for discussion, we would want to take a look at that.
and I guess I was thinking too in terms of other personal evening commitments that staff may have. I don't know how far out those commitments project. I know some teach and this and that.
So,
So they could just quarterly, even if it's another year.
oh, we do? Okay. Ms. Alexander just showed me that starting in January, we actually have, in January we are meeting on the 2nd at this point, but scheduled for now. It is the 2nd and the 4th Tuesday in January, only because I guess the first Tuesday would have impact the holiday. And then in April, again, we've already also got the 2nd and the 4th. And in May, it's the 2nd and the 4th. And I don't know why those are that way. So there's not a whole lot of changes at this point.
When the,
We're
yeah,
doing it in October.
when the
so, I mean,
exceptions are outweighing the norm, it's.
So, thank you. That's great that we already have those scheduled that way, so. Let me get to Ms. Holtz and then I'll come to you, Ms. Holtz.
Personally, it doesn't make any difference to me, but there are times when we as a group have been invited to workshops with the city council when we're talking about the budget, so that ought to be taken into consideration also.
Yeah,
We'd
we,
still
we
be able
did
to do
say
that.
we could do that anyway. That still can happen. Ms. Weems?
I don't know if this is part of the conversation, but, you know, when we meet in the summer, there's and I know I've talked with a couple on staff actually, and a couple of colleagues. You know, there's sometimes when we come down here for like 30 minutes and there's nothing really to do. So can this same group, or would that be another conversation to kind of look at our summer schedule to see if we actually do need, I'm not trying to get out of work, I'm fine, but it just seems kind of crazy to bring everybody down here. You can't do awards because none of the kids are in school, and then sometimes we're out, by 6:30. So maybe look at that just to really get stuff that we need done instead of coming down here. If we can get it done in one, meeting in July or well, we do that anyway in August. Just kind of look at that, just for more efficiency.
And I just picked at the June calendar. I don't remember when are high school graduations, Mr. Keeper?
Third.
12th,
Second,
13th,
third week.
14th? 19, 20, 21?
Tuesday,
The 12th or the 19th?
12th.
12th. So we'd mess that up. But that's 1 week of because that would be graduation week is the second week. So,
Well, so what
I think
I'm feeling here is that we need a little bit more information, maybe a possible scenario showing what dates could be possible. Could we do that for next time?
Do you want to do that in here, or do you want us to provide that to the policy review committee and let them kick that around? That's up to you guys.
my recommendation is the policy committee go ahead and move forward with writing the new bylaw and getting ready for that, and then just have that presentation ready for us to consider. If there really is more conflict, I don't think that there are going to be any more conflicts being on the 2nd and 4th than there will be on the 1st or the 3rd. I think we'll ultimately find that. So I think the policy committee could go ahead and just start preparing it so we could start reading the language. Not that it's going to be that difficult. It's going to be changing 1 and 3 to 2 and 4.
Already done.
Already done. See? Yeah.
Already done,
Yeah.
okay, so that's easy. And then we can just bring it as information and we can talk about it, because it's gonna be for action anyway,
Right.
before this would go into effect. But as you said, we probably need to talk with Farrell about how it's gonna impact our budget.
Well,
Meetings.
I would just then recommend we,
Just move one up to December.
bring it to a workshop as a part of admin matters for the next workshop.
Yeah.
And we'll just bring you that, answer some of those questions. You can already have a policy in place, let the policy review committee take a look at it if that's what y'all wanna do, and we'll at least be able to answer some of the questions you've raised tonight.
So we can't really vote in here, but could I see a show of hands to go forward with this, please? If you raise your hand if you'd like to see us go forward. Okay, so that looks like the majority of the board would like to move forward, at least with the policy committee so far, and information next time.
Because we
Okay.
have actually 3 weeks between now and our next meeting.
Wow. Okay,
It's gonna be
next.
till the 10th of October.
So the next part of our agenda is SAT results. Dr. Spence, would you like to
Right.
introduce?
Yes, I would actually, and so this is actually not SAT. This is going to be preliminary SAT or the PSAT
PSAT.
8-9 results, and
Okay.
so I'm going to turn that over
these
to
preliminary.
Dr. Robertson's team. And
Hi. Good afternoon.
Good
Good
evening.
afternoon, Chairwoman Anderson, members of the Board of Regents. My name is Scott Dunn, and I'm a testing specialist in the Office of Student Assessment. This afternoon, our department will present a brief overview of the fall PSAT 8-9 assessment results for Virginia Beach 8th grade students. I'm going to start by explaining the PSAT 8-9, and then we will look at the results from the October 2015 and 2016 administrations. Some of you may remember, prior to school year 2015-2016, our division administered the ACT Explore and then the College Board Ready Step assessment to all grade 8 students. However, ACT decided to discontinue the Explore assessment, and the College Board redesigned their suite of assessments and eliminated the Ready Step. Subsequently, these changes required VBCPS to determine how to move forward with measuring college and career readiness at the middle school level. October 2015 was the first year that the PSAT 8-9 was administered. Pictured on the slide is a segment of the VBCPS Compass to 2020 storyboard. As part of Goal 2 of Compass to 2020, the PSAT 8-9 provides VBCPS 8th grade students the opportunity to demonstrate their knowledge in college and career readiness prior to entering high school. Equally important is that it provides the staff with meaningful data to ensure each student is enrolled in appropriate classes, exposed to rigorous courses based on readiness, and better informed as part of their own academic and career plan. In summary, it provides our students with an early and additional metric to guide their next 4 years. The PSAT 8-9 is the first test in the College Board's SAT suite of assessments, designed for 8th and 9th graders and tightly aligned with the SAT and PSAT. The PSAT 8-9 establishes a baseline for college and career readiness as students enter high school. The PSAT 8-9 measures the reading, writing, and language and math skills students need for college and a career. After the test, students and parents receive feedback on how ready students are for college, along with the tools to help them improve. All tests in the SAT suite of assessments are aligned to the same research backbone and focus on the same domain of knowledge and skills. Although available to grade 8 and 9 students, VBCPS administers the PSAT 8-9 to 8th grade students only. The PSAT is administered in grades 9 through 11 and the SAT to grades 9 through 12. By providing this assessment in grade 8, both our students and staff are able to gauge college and career readiness prior to entering high school and get a head start on this journey earlier than the vast majority of 8th grade students across the country. All tests in the SAT suite of assessments are on a common score scale that provides consistent feedback, enabling teachers to adjust instruction to better support students who are ahead or behind. Being on the same scale means the score a student receives on the PSAT 8-9 is an equivalent score that a student would have received on the SAT if he or she had taken it the same day. The PSAT 8-9 provides a college and career benchmark for students and reports a college readiness benchmark for each section of the assessment. A score at or above the benchmark indicates on track to be ready for college at the time of high school graduation. As we move forward with today's presentation, it is important to be reminded that the PSAT 8-9 results are reported as one of the division's navigational markers with Compass to 2020. As you see in the slide, the results are reported under Goal 2, Multiple Pathways. All students will experience personalized learning opportunities to prepare them for post-secondary education, employment, or military service. The navigational marker for PSAT 8-9 is the percentage of 8th grade students meeting college readiness benchmarks. Results for 15-16 and 16-17 school years are currently reported. This slide outlines the types of skills assessed. Take a moment to review the skills tested. For the next few minutes, you're going to see types of questions asked on the assessment. Take a moment to read and answer the reading question. This question prompts students to determine word meaning within a social science context. While students may frequently use the word intense to describe personalities or emotions, the context of the sentence requires students to recognize that intense can also mean concentrated. The best answer here is choice B because the context makes clear that the clustering of jobs, innovation, and productivity is expected to be more concentrated in a smaller number of bigger cities and city regions over the coming decades. In these ways, the question draws students back to the text rather than rewarding only isolated vocabulary knowledge. Now take a moment to read and answer this question from the writing and language portion of the test. This question prompts students to determine which word makes the most sense in the context of a sentence. Departed is the most contextually appropriate way to indicate that Kingman had deviated from the tradition of Chinese landscape painting in a number of ways. In this sort of question, students must demonstrate not only ability with language in general, but also skill in using language in particular context to convey clear and precise meaning. Take a moment to read and answer this math question. This math problem prompts students to interpret a situation and formulate a linear expression that represents the situation mathematically. The construction of mathematical models that represent real-world scenarios is a critical skill. The answer is B. Although this question permitted a calculator, there are some math questions that do not permit the use of a calculator. Before we delve deep into the data, it is important to note that we are only looking at grade 8 data. Virginia Beach students make up more than half of the total grade 8 students in Virginia who participated in PSAT 8-9. For that reason, I will not be noting comparisons between VBCPS as a group and the state as a group. I will, however, make comparisons between VBCPS and the nation, in which approximately 460,000 students participated during the fall 2016 administration. We are going to start with discussing the total mean scores. Total mean scores are derived from the combination of the evidence-based reading and writing and mathematics section of the assessment. After discussing total mean scores, we will delve into evidence-based reading and writing, then math mean scores. During the presentation, I will refer to evidence-based reading and writing as simply reading and writing. On the screen are the total mean scores for each middle school, VBCPS, the state, and the nation. As a group, Virginia Beach 8th grade students performed better than their peers at the national level by 20 points in 2015 and in 2016. VBCPS scores increased by 12 points in 2016 from 821 to 833. 9 of the 14 schools showed a higher score than the national total mean score in 2015 and in 2016. In 2016, the highest total mean score was at Old Donation School with 1,114, followed by Great Neck and Plaza Middle Schools with scores of 880 and 874 respectively. This screen shows the mean section scores for reading and writing. As a group, Virginia Beach 8th grade students performed better than their peers at the national level by 12 points in 2015 and in 2016. The 2016 VBCPS reading and writing mean section scores increased 4 points from 2015. Old Donation School showed the highest reading and writing mean section score with a 564 in 2016, which is a 5-point increase from the previous year. The next two highest reading and writing mean section scores were achieved at Great Neck with a 448 and Plaza with a 444. The reading and writing mean section scores at 10 of the 14 schools and VBCPS was the same or higher than the national reading and writing mean section score in 2015 and in 2016. The largest reading and writing mean section score increase was at Plaza Middle School with 15 points. This screen shows the mean section scores for math. As a group, Virginia Beach 8th grade students performed better than their peers at the national level by 9 points in 2015 and 7 points in 2016. The 2016 VBCPS math mean section scores increased 6 points from 2015. Old Donation School showed the highest math mean score with 549 in 2016, which is a 6-point increase from the previous year. The next two highest math mean scores were achieved at Great Neck with a 432 and Plaza with a 430. The math mean section scores at 8 of the 14 schools and VBCPS was the same or higher than the national math mean section score in 2015 and in 2016. The largest math mean section score increase was at Salem Middle School with 13 points. Here we're going to transition and look at the data on the percent of students meeting the college readiness benchmark we mentioned earlier. The next two slides will provide results for the reading and writing and then math college readiness data. This chart indicates the percent of students who scored at or above the reading and writing college readiness benchmark of 390. As a division, 61% of students met this benchmark compared to the 55% at the national level. VPCPS increased by 1 percentage point in 2016 from 2015. 100% of all donation school students met the reading and writing college readiness benchmark for both 2015 and 2016. The next two schools with the highest percentages of students meeting the benchmark were at Great Neck with 76% and Princess Anne with 74%. 8 of the 14 schools maintained or showed an increase from last year in the percentage of students who met or exceeded the reading and writing college readiness benchmark. The largest increase of the percentage of students meeting the reading and writing college readiness benchmark from 2015 was at Plaza Middle School with 8 percentage points. This chart indicates the percent of students who scored at or above the math college readiness benchmark of 430. As a division, 39% of students met the college readiness benchmark compared to the 36% at the national level. The percent of students meeting this benchmark in 2016 was 1 percentage point lower than in 2015. Old Donation School showed the highest percentage of students who met the math college readiness benchmark for both 2015 and 2016. The next two schools with the highest percentages of students meeting the benchmark were Great Neck with 54% and Plaza with 49%. 7 of the 14 schools maintained or showed an increase from last year in the percentage of students who met or exceeded the math college readiness benchmark. The largest increase of percentage of students meeting the math college readiness benchmark from 2015 was Plaza Middle School with 8 percentage points. You may have noticed that the percentage of students meeting the math college readiness benchmark is substantially lower than those meeting the reading and writing benchmarks. This can be attributed to many things, such as the math benchmark is 430 and the reading and writing benchmark is 390. The PSAT 8-9 is administered in the fall, just 1 month after the students return to school. In addition, the algebra level rigor of math assessed on the PSAT 8-9 may be challenging to those students newly enrolled in algebra or to those enrolled in Math 8. Unlike math, the standards taught in reading and writing spiral throughout the student's educational path. This chart indicates the percent of students who scored at or above on both reading and writing and math college readiness benchmarks. As a division, 35% of students met the college readiness benchmark compared to the 31% at the national level. The percent of students meeting this benchmark in 2016 was the same as in 2015. Old Donation School showed the highest percentage of students who met both college readiness benchmarks for both 2015 and 2016. The next two schools with the highest percentages of students meeting the benchmark were Great Neck with 48% and Plaza with a 46%. 5 of the 14 schools maintained or showed an increase from last year in the percentage of students who met or exceeded both the reading and writing and math college readiness benchmarks. The largest increase of the percentage of students meeting both college readiness benchmarks from 2015 was at Plaza Middle School with 8 percentage points. The next administration of the PSAT 8-9 to grade 8 students will be in late October. PSAT will be administered to high school students during October as well. We expect results for these assessments in late December and will follow up with a presentation sharing those results during the third quarter. SAT data for the graduating class of 2017 will be presented at the October 24th meeting. In your packet tonight, you have a detailed assessment brief for the PSAT 89. Now at this time, we're available to answer any questions you might have. Yes.
Ms. Melnick?
Can you repeat again what level math is on this test? Because I think that's important, because
It's algebra level.
it's algebra level.
Yes.
And what percentage of our 8th graders are taking algebra? So for some, they've never had the exposure.
That's correct. Would have had pre-algebra.
So I think that kind of shows that difference between like you said, between the reading and the math, but what percentage of our students
40%.
have never seen
60% have never seen algebra concepts.
60
Well, they've seen algebra concepts, but they've not taken
concepts, but you know,
Not enrolled.
so 60%. Okay, I
So
think that's
fairly
important.
close alignment to the number that you see
Right.
meeting the college
Right.
readiness benchmarks.
Okay.
And also when you notice the national, that comparison is with only the 8th grade test takers. It's not with 9th grade test takers built
Right.
into that. So
But still, that's okay.
So why do they test on something that, for the most part, most 8th graders have not ever experienced?
It is part of the suite of assessments to determine where the readiness is at 8th grade, so that plans or data can be analyzed and plans can be made to suit those kids that need to adjust their education, to adjust their path, to put them more on the college readiness track.
Ms. Fry?
Yes.
Hi, so I saw projected ahead at SAT results. Is ACT part of the equation? To report back to us?
I think we have, I'd have to see the forecast, but I know we have it forecasted out. At a different time, bring you the ACT.
Thank you.
Ms. McLeod?
I think it's fair to look at, with the math scores especially, I mean, to your point, Mrs. Melnick, that even, this is given in October, and the students who do well on it still are just seeing it for several months, so that, it depends. But a question I would throw out is, you were mentioning how reading is integrated and spirals through, and I actually was a lover of everyday mathematics. I know other people will throw things at me for that, but I liked the way that it spiraled through. You continuously revisited. So then my question then stems are, what are we doing to put algebra concepts in our math curriculum to spiral through, so that possibly maybe that would be, you know, there. I can say that, and Old Donation School is a perfect example, because I remember Mrs. Haggerty in 4th grade, and she was doing algebra equations, the scale and balancing and all of those things, so you can learn how to use manipulatives to do that. So I know that it happens, and I know that our Old Donation School kids are highly motivated. It almost, I actually chuckled that you moved it out of alphabetical order, so Plaza and ODC were not next to each other. But anyway, in the grid. But so I think it's important to notice that those kids are getting it differently. It doesn't mean that our students can't pick it up, but they possibly aren't being introduced to it. So I'd love to know how we're trying to introduce algebra from elementary all the way through, because kids can get it. The other question I have is, 2 questions. One is, what percentage of the 8th graders at Plaza are, I know there's 125 of them, but what's that percentage for, of MYP? For the total number of 8th graders? You can tell me later, but yeah.
It's like 25% about there. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm actually, yeah. So I think that, and I know why I bring this up is because I know we're trying to integrate more the MYP concepts, because one, we have to for the IB, requirements, NYP requirements. But whatever we're doing there, we need to do it everywhere, because something's working. Just as a side. And then my question for you is, and maybe this is going to go back over to Ms. Green, is what do we do what do the counselors do with the information that they have from the PSAT? And other than the fact I know that every parent can expect your mailbox to be flooded with college letters at that point, once if your child does relatively okay. But what are the counselors,
Well,
what
what
do
we
they
do with
actually
the PSAT data is a little bit different than what we do with the PSAT 8-9 data.
Okay,
So the PSAT data is the data that informs the National Merit
Right.
Program. It informs, it does to some degree inform
Mhm.
Colleges beginning to look at those scores.
Mhm.
8-9 data is a little bit different. It's more of an internal data set that we
Okay.
use to really be thinking about appropriate math placement as an example. But let me let Amy and James tackle a little bit the shifts in the math curriculum. Just talk a little bit about what's happening in terms of that, and what we're thinking about with math, because this math is, I mean, typically if you're comparing reading and math in the division, math is fairly consistently lower in terms of whatever the measures are, and so we're looking at some shifts in the math curriculum anyway. So
So, we began actually those algebraic concepts even in elementary, but we've really begun probably in the past 2 years to tighten up our elementary math curriculum. I think that the pendulum's swung a little bit with being very much a hands-on, conceptual based, and then not necessarily teaching things in units. There have been very much that spiral effect. And so what the team has done has created units of study that are very clear around pre-algebraic concepts and those sorts of things, but then have ways of continuing to spiral the concepts and make connections, most importantly, make connections for students. And then that follows them into middle school. So hopefully we'll begin to see those concepts form earlier in a way that kids are really making those connections from elementary to algebra. Because sometimes you might have the connections built early on, but you don't see the foundation built, but you don't see the connection into algebra. So that should help. So absolutely, we're watching that and looking at ways we can prepare our students with mathematics. And I wouldn't say that PSAT 8-9 is a way of really measuring algebraic acquisition. So even I think if we saw some of those numbers go up, I don't think that would tell us students are necessarily meeting the mark in algebra. So we have some other data points we'd be looking at, particularly around the SOL and other points, but continuing to build that. Absolutely. And then for how the counselors, and Dr. Green can chime in, but they absolutely do look at that data, particularly, as Dr. Spence said, that PSAT data is informing things like AP readiness and that sort of thing. But the PSAT 8-9 data, we're beginning to find more and more ways to use it appropriately with students. So again, it's a newer data set for us. So absolutely, I think it's important that students begin to, again, not look at it as how good am I in math. That's not really what we're trying to inform a child on here, as much as kind of where am I on that trajectory towards college career readiness, towards being successful in future course planning and that sort of things.
Ms. Melnick?
Dr. Catherall, we do have 7th graders that take Algebra 1 though, correct? Okay, that I wanted to make sure.
Oh, that's a good question, because I didn't think about that. At
Me too.
NYP, how many of those, do they add those 7th graders into this 8-9 score?
No, they've already been exposed to the algebra. They took Algebra 1 in 7th
But they
grade.
don't take it till 8th grade. Okay, you confused me.
So
Okay, yeah,
some
good
children
point, you're
have
right.
had the exposure to an Algebra 1.
Exactly,
Okay.
and I assume that's the same at ODS, probably.
Any other questions?
Good point, Kim.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is the capital improvement plan update.
we'll let them decide.
Spiffy.
Yes, ma'am. Magic. They don't let me touch buttons around.
Logitech, come on, just put down.
Good afternoon, Madam Chairwoman, board members, Dr. Spence. Great to be here. I've got a lot of ground to cover, about 225 million worth. So hang with me, all right? We're going to split it up into 3 areas: our modernization replacement program, and then all of our what we call our summer infrastructure projects, and then a couple of strategic projects. You'll see these 4 schools: Old Donation, Dye, Thorogood, and PA Middle, and they actually represent, again, when you consider that Old Donation used to be Old Donation School in Kemps Landing, they actually represent 5 schools. You can see nearly 200 million, but these 4 school facilities will bring our total, and you've probably heard this before, but will bring our total number of school facilities that have been modernized or replaced in the past couple of decades to 34, and right at $750 million, $750 million. So we've accomplished a lot here. Specifically, Old Donation School, $63.6 million project, our 9th LEED building. It opened its doors April the 3rd, 5 months ahead of the September 2017 promised delivery date. I hope that everyone's had a chance to be inside the building. It's really it's a fascinating building. McKinsey Construction built it about the local general contractor. I think it's the 11th or 12th building they've built for us. They've built about 10% of our inventory. An aerial from the front this summer. Another aerial kind of from the Independence Boulevard.
Oh no.
View, there it is. All right. Now I gotta find my mouse. There it is. Watch this. This is cool.
That's cool.
Pretty cool. We actually had two true drone shots. Matt Conigliere from BBTV has another one that's on YouTube that's pretty cool. Yeah, that's obviously their music. You can tell the kids saw the drone floating around inside the school building. A lot of good teaching and learning going on in that building, and really a great, flexible 21st century learning space. John B. Dye Elementary School modernization, $26 million occupied modernization. We broke ground this spring on this 1956 building, so it's 61 years old. It'll be 63, 64 years old when we get finished. We've got about another 27 months to go. Again, McKinsey Construction building this project as well. In fact, same superintendent, Don Montague, who did ODS, is over doing John B. Dye. Architectural image from, this is actually with the new front of the building that is facing Great Neck Middle School. So the building will get totally reoriented where the front will face Great Neck Middle. And this is on the other side, if you're standing kind of where the water tower is, on what I call the current left side of the building, over about the tennis center. That's the bus queuing area where kids will drop off in the morning and get back on buses in the afternoon. And an aerial from this summer. It's messy. There's no real good way to do it without making a mess. Right? We've got 8 portable classrooms there now. We've got 12 more coming. We've got geothermal wells going in the ground. We've got a good neighborhood civic league rep who communicates well early and often. Turn lane number 2 was installed to Thomas Bishop as promised this summer. We did the first turn lane into the Great Neck Middle School property last summer as promised, but we've got a ways to go. Beth Bianchi's doing a great job. She's got 2 full-time jobs. She's got a job of running to school every day, and then she's got a job of putting up with us for another 27 months.
Hey, Tony,
Yes, sir.
can you go back to that for a second?
Certainly.
Can you talk a little bit about the impact of where that bus is going to shift, what's happening with the gymnasium and all of that conversation?
Yes. If you see top right where the water tank is, and those of you who know that building, that's the gymnasium is the large two-story structure hanging off the top of the building. That's going to get torn down. So you see the kind of the beginning of the bus queuing area right below the gymnasium. This building the project is split up into multiple phases. What we do is we use the portable classrooms to move teachers and kids in as we renovate a wing. We do have a fair amount of demolition going on. The gymnasium is going to get torn down. You see the foundations going in kind of in what I call the back of the building where the fields used to be, and the geothermal wells are going in right now. So where it's picking whole wings up, moving them out, renovating, moving them back in, tearing the gym down. One of the first things we're working on is getting the cafeteria and kitchen done. We've got a call. We've got dumpsters along the front of the building. We can't get back to the cafeteria kitchen area in the back of the building. So, but you'll see the gymnasium get torn down here in the next 6 or 8 months.
Where's the gym gonna be relocated to? In that, where the footing is being poured
Yes, ma'am.
there, or is, okay.
Yes, ma'am. Mhm. And that's where the front of the building. I lost my pointer, but this will be the front of the building right here.
Right.
And you repurpose other spaces. If the library becomes something else. We did 10 of these over 5 years. If you think about Malibu and Lynn Haven and Pembroke Meadows, we had 10 of these going on during a 5-year span, so 2 a year. This is a lot more complicated. We're doing a lot more. We're going to be there a while. But safety first and foremost. Kids got to get educated while we construct a building around it.
Two quick other things before we move on. One is just discuss the traffic mitigation there, because traffic's always been an issue there, and I think we're taking some steps to mitigate that.
Yes.
If you could just talk about how that'll impact
Okay.
traffic, and then the other is anything going on with like we did with ODS. Anything going on with working with the kids instructionally around what's happening
Yes.
out there?
Both of those. Traffic has been a absolute mess before we showed up and did Great Neck Middle. After Great Neck Middle, this will go a long way towards solving that. The buses will queue on the top right, kind of where the water tower is. So the goal is to separate car and bus traffic as much as possible. And in older schools, we didn't do that. Until you mix cars and buses, you're asking for trouble. So buses will go down Thomas Bishop, and they will queue diagonally, kind of like they do in our newer schools. There will be, you can't see it yet because we don't have the site work done, but there will be a much longer, parents will come in here and there will be a much longer queuing area along here for parent drop-off. And you will also have staff parking and also parking out front. So the separation of car and bus traffic. We spent more time in the community meetings talking about traffic than anything else. That's what happened. When we did the middle school, we talked about football field lights. Here, we talked about traffic.
Yep.
We modeled it, so we think we've got that one solved when we leave here. And to your point about, not only the building being a teaching tool, but during construction, the actual, the construction of the building being a teaching tool. Yes, we will do just like we did at ODS, where we will educate the youngsters while we are building it. The good news is they're right there. So right in their backyard. At ODS we Skyped in. Tim Cole would Skype in from his scary as that sounds. iPad. So yes, we'll be doing that here, Thurgood, PA Middle, and everything we do.
Just because you're talking about it, when they come in for the parent pickup line, is it going to be a right turn only out of there, or we have traffic will it be able to turn left as well as they
No,
drop
they'll be able to
off?
get back out on the service drive.
Okay, so they're going to go up, down, and around. They'll have to U-turn if they live down back towards down Cox High School.
Oh, you mean once you turn on Great Neck
Uh-huh.
Road? She said, can you turn left on Great Neck?
Oh,
There's, it's an
median
entry.
break.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just, though,
Yeah, there
we've
is.
got
There's
someone there
still-
helping
there's
with it. It's,
They-
yeah.
there's a median
That's
break
the place
day.
we get calls about, so if we know that we
And
got it taken
Thomas
care of.
Bishop is probably, they want to signal it's out in the right of ways traffic engineering calls, not ours. So
Right.
Rick Lum, the traffic engineer, has been involved in every one of the public meetings.
Good.
They all know him. Anything else about Di before we move on?
Thank you.
Thurgood Elementary School replacement, a 1958 building, 60 years old. We will bid that project in the spring. Stakeholder input started last year. We had 8 visioning design charrette. I call them the group hugs at the school. The architects had another half a dozen or so individual meetings with, we meet individually with admin and library and grade level and things like that. So that is still ongoing. We're kind of between schematic design and 35%. We will have a late fall community meeting. We brief you guys on November the 8th. Okay, so we'll come back to you with more detail about Thurgood Olling. We'll bring Donna Pfaff, the architect from Via Design, who's a great architect, who's done a fair amount of work for us. She did Shelton Park and Newtown and Trentwood. So we'll bring her in on November the 8th. We'll go out to the community after that in the late fall, early winter, and then late winter, early spring. We'd like to get a contractor under contract when we go back out to the community before we start construction. And an early rendering. This is again schematic front of the building. We'll bring you more detail. Hold your questions. We'll bring you more detail in November. If you've ever been to Red Mill, Ocean Lakes, Tallwood Elementary Schools, let me know if you have a hard time finding the front door.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're right.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, so hold that thought.
I was hoping he wasn't
Hold
going
on.
to repeat that
Glenwood.
design.
And we're also cognizant of the Adam Thurgood House
Right.
Mm-hmm.
and what that community represents, and being mindful of really a residential community, and this is of a different scale. But if you think about Beach Middle, okay, and what we did at Beach Middle with the 3-story building and the coastal articulation, and dropping that thing in there, so we're paying a lot of attention to how we achieve that here on a different scale. Interior, again, preliminary rendering, okay, the magic of 3D modeling still amazes me. Prince Anne Middle School, a 1962 building, 55 years old. You know what, that's not right. I wrote down the Kellum age. That's it's in the 70s, so I'm off by about a decade. Programming and visioning started in the fall. We've had no less than 15, in fact, I think we had an inquiry from y'all earlier this summer. We've had no less than 15 visioning, programming, charrette. This one actually took longer than we thought it would. Great input from the community and from stakeholders. Demo's underway. If you ride by it, you'll get a good look at it. It's not going to be there much longer. R.J. Smith is a good demo contractor out of Richmond. We've gotten more use out of this school building after we got out in terms of SWAT, fire, police, special ops. They have really, I can't tell you how much these folks appreciate being able to go in and do all of the destructive things that they do to a building. They don't have places to train like this. So, thanks to Tim Cole for doing that, reaching out to folks, and I can tell you that people really appreciate it. We will bid this in the summer. Demo should be wrapped up by the end of the year. We have really good. Both architects have done a good job of. They have their own webpage that they link to our construction project page, so you can follow everything that we've done with all of these projects. And again, a couple of, these are some earlier renderings. We're a little farther along, we're probably pushing 50% design. This is kind of from the, looking from Foxfire, and, which is down here, and Leroy, is back there, okay? And that one is from Seaboard down here, okay? Seaboard, Leroy there, and then Bernadotte there. And to Dr. Spence's point about traffic, you know, you'll see buses. We're getting, there'll be no median, no access off the Seaboard. Another problem that PA Elementary. My wife was there for 11 years. The traffic between the elementary school and the middle school is
Hideous.
always a problem. And so getting traffic off the Seaboard. So same thing. Buses will go on the Bernadotte side. The front of the building will face Leroy. We were having a conversation today about the address and whether or not we should change the address. Simple things like that. The front of the building will face Leroy, and you'll have staff parking that'll enter off of and drop off of Leroy. Okay, that's the big stuff. Summer infrastructure projects. And again, folks, this is capital, big stuff, not the day in and day out painting of buildings and the maintenance and the stuff that all of our 200 guys and gals do year round, but do a lot of in the summertime. Okay, but this is bigger capital stuff. We touched about 27 buildings, total value almost $27 million. And I'm gonna motor through these. Salem Middle School, 1988 building, original roof, again approaching 30 years old. About $3.5 million. Westar Roofing, a local roofing contractor, does a lot of work for us. Did put the roof on Kellum and ODS, doing a good job. We knocked out the classrooms, admin, library, and the gym this summer. Get the balance of the building next summer. Too much to do in one summer. Tallwood, Larkspur, cooling towers, boilers, $650,000. Tallwood's an 89 building. Larkspur is a 94 building. All of our summer work is substantially complete, and I meant to mention that at the beginning. The key to that for a school division is being the first one out on the market and planning 1 to 2 years in advance. And so we get all of our work out on the street in the December, January, February timeframe, so we're ready with materials to get to work when kids get out. SeaTac Elementary School chiller, Salem, cooling towers, some makeup air units at Bayside High School. To that point about getting it out early, this was awarded so early that D.E. Kirby was able to actually get the chiller procured and put it in over spring break as opposed to waiting during the summer. So first out, more economic, you get better pricing, you get better contractors. Fire alarm replacements at Christopher Farms and Glenwood. Hard to believe that Christopher Farms is 20 years old. Glenwood was a 1990 building. Huge building, too big a building.
No, 1990.
Bayside High, this is a cool project. It's only $175,000. Replacing the old bleachers we've done at Plaza and Kempsville. But here's a good example where a small project and a little love can make a big difference in a space. So if you go into the Bayside gym, it got a fresh coat of paint. Gym floor got resealed. We've got some bleachers that got a pop of color. If you're VMI fans, it like the red and yellow. So that has really improved that space. White Oaks Elementary School HVAC replacement, replacing all the HVAC equipment in White Oaks, which is a 1978 building, so approaching 40 years old. About $1.25 million done. Indian Lakes is a similar vintage, 1979. These are the last two of the John Waller prototype. The double loaded corridor with the gym on one side, the admin cafeteria on the other. We had we had 27. I went to one in Brookwood. We had 27. We torn a few of them down, but these were the last two that Mr. Waller did in the late 70s. So $1.25 million there, all new HVAC equipment. Ocean Lakes Elementary. This is a combo HVAC window and performance contracting project. That's why the dollar value is $4.5 million. It's a 1990 building, so it's 27 years old. It's a geothermal conversion. This is our third elementary school geo conversion, 220 and 300 foot wells. Replace the windows, all new lighting, and so you walk into that 27-year-old building, and aside from the furniture, it looks like a brand new building. Yeah. Ocean Lakes High School, the last 6 rooftop units, not very exciting, but we have 26 pieces of equipment on top of the roof, so these are the last 6. We are going to have to turn around fairly soon and start over where we started about 10 years ago on a building this big. I meant to add up how much we spent on the roof, but I forgot. But $1.5 million this summer, another DE Kirby job. Tennis courts, $500,000. We partnered with Parks and Recreation 50-50 on the high school tennis courts. Substantially complete. I think they've got the windscreen and the practice backboard to put up, but tennis courts are finished, $500,000, folks. So, Tallwood High School field hockey improvements, $250,000. Tallwood struggles with outdoor space, even though it's a relatively good-sized site. So we had a wooded patch kind of between the stadium field and the baseball and softball fields that we've been eyeing for a long time. So we found some grounds money, and we finished that project. We've got to get grass established, but it'll help them in terms of field space. They'll be able to use it in the springtime. Parking and site improvements, we do $750,000 to $1 million every summer. You see we've got Cox, Prince Anne High School, PA Middle, Thalia, the track at Larkspur. We own 2,000 acres of property. And so if you've driven down General Booth Boulevard and seen the milling and paving, we've got a lot of asphalt, a lot of grounds, a lot of pipe. And so, we have to stay at the outside stuff as well. So all of that work is done. Energy performance contracts. Centerville Elementary is similar to Ocean Lakes. It doesn't have windows, but it's got all new lighting, geothermal retrofit, another 220, 300 foot wells. This is a 1984 building, so it's 33 years old. I want to talk to you a little bit more when I get done with the next couple about performance contracting and really what that is accomplishing. Parkway Elementary, I hear a lot about at home, is our 5th geothermal conversion. Similar to Centerville, replaced all the lighting. Just an unbelievable impact on the built environment inside these buildings. The previous ones went from T12s to T8s. Now we're going to all LED, and we're winning the energy war. Okay, but what it's doing inside these buildings is really, really interesting. Lansdowne High School replaced all the ball field lighting to the tune of about $1.25 million. We had some foundation problems with the original lighting. We converted those to LEDs. We finished the stadium field, the tennis courts over the winter, and finished baseball, softball, and the track in August. Daniel, you take this Friday?
No,
It's an old one.
found it online.
Oh, you did? I gave you credit for being at the game.
I was there.
Okay.
They were on the road.
Oh, they were on the road. So if you're riding down Princess Anne Road, the thing about the LED lighting, and this is the first LED competition field, high school competition field in the Commonwealth. If you ride by, the lights, there's no light pollution. The LED just lights up the field. So it's interesting to ride by and see, aside from being extremely energy efficient and the fixtures lasting a long time. You'll note that, interestingly enough, that is a cell tower. So that generates revenue. We'll be back to you in October. That's an existing cell tower. The city had space on it that they wanted us to save that they never used, and so we're bringing to you another revenue-generating lease on that existing cell tower while we're there. Lighting upgrades. These are just pure lighting projects. You can see the two corporate landing schools, Green Run High, Kings Grant, Cox, North Landing, Ocean Lakes I mentioned earlier, a little bit of Plaza Annex and Salem Middle School. And really this is, we talked a lot about saving energy, okay, and cost avoidance. And we're updating the chart that shows where we've grown in square footage by 7 or 8%. We're building bigger buildings since '06. And at the same time, our energy consumption has decreased by whatever it is, 26, 27%. It looks odd to look at.
Yeah.
And so we get wrapped up in the cost avoidance and all the things that Farrell likes, where we're saving $2 and $3 million a year. Okay, that's going to continue to happen. Okay, but what we're really figuring out is, particularly with the LED lighting, the impact that the lighting can have on the built environment in a classroom is astounding. And I, personally, Parkway, it was like a cave. And there was a teacher who suffered from migraines. The older lights flicker. And so the LED lighting and the impact on teaching and learning in the built environment is something that really I think we're even more proud of. And so there's more of that to come. We've done 24 million in performance contracting. We've got another 20 in the chute. So we will, by the time we're done, we will have executed $44 million in performance contracting. Strategic projects, about 2.4 million. 21st century learning environment improvements. So this is a cool project. It's we used some of the funding from the sale of the Adult Learning Center. It's a $2.1 million project. We had older schools put together proposals for transforming their library and media center learning commons areas. We had a group select the best 16. And so we've been out in those 6, we had a group meeting, and then we've been out to the individual schools, and we're going to, we're going to flip the library. It's not a big construction project, it's a lot of furniture and equipment, but we've got a lot of fixed bookshelves. So we're going to transform the heart of the school in these 16 older schools that we would have otherwise not have gotten to anytime soon. So this is a really cool project. And our comprehensive long-range facility plan, we're going to update. It's a small project in terms of dollar figures, $300,000. We're going to update that the original study was done in '07, so it's overdue. The data collection has started. We have really almost the same team we brought back. Mike Ross with HBA under one of our annual contracts is partnering with Tracy Richter. Tracy was with Bill DeYoung. DeYoung Richter was actually they merged with a group called Cooperative Strategies. So we will have almost the same team. Matt Sachs is a GIS guy, and so we've met with them. Good news is we have the vast majority of the data. We have demographic data. We have data on the condition of our building. So we don't have to do, all we have to do is just update that. We are in the process of putting together a steering committee, a group of about 30 to 35. Our 2 board members that are on the joint City Council School Board Modernization Committee will be on that. The 2 council members will be on it. community members, students. Dr. Spence should be sending letters out here in another day or two. We'll spend obviously time on data analysis. We'll work with our T&L folks in terms of the educational framework for what a school building wants to look like down the road. The buildings that we're designing and building today, ODS, are different than what we built 5 or 10 years ago. So what does that look like in 5 or 10 years? We'll have about 6 meetings over the course of the next 9 months. We'll have a couple of community meetings, similar to what we did 10 or 11 years ago. It's a good collaborative process, and it'll set the course for the next decade or so for this school division and taking care of our older assets. And
Found that old
yeah.
chart.
Yeah, so the old study is still on our website. We put together 60, 80, and $100 million scenarios, and the bottom dropped out of the economy, and our funding went down in the $30 to $35 million range for several years. The most telling thing, we have 4 high schools that are approaching 60 years old. Prince Anne, Kempsville, Bayside, First Colonial. Okay? Princess Anne is partly funded, hanging off the last 2 or 3 years of the capital program. All right, so that's 4 schools is between $450 and $500 million. All right, in today's dollars. All right, at the current rate of funding, we'll get to the last, and I don't know which one that is. Okay, pick one. First Colonial, Bayside. I don't know. All right, we will get to the last of one of those schools in 2057. And pick a building. The building will be 95
Right.
years old. Okay.
It was only intended to be 50 years.
So
Don't make it come so I want to be lying.
yeah, that's
Free.
and that's not touching elementaries. That's we've got about between 20 and 25 of them that need it today, and so we all know it's a lot of money. But when you've got nearly 90 of them, and you've got 11 million square feet of space, for as much as we've done, you got to keep at it. Okay. Here's a schedule. We will be back to y'all at least twice, if not 3 times. We've got our first steering committee meeting in early October. We'll be wrapping up in the spring. It's a good process. It's an inclusive process. It involves the community. They help us, and Tracy might do a good job facilitating this. Prioritize what's left to be done. Okay, I think Mr. Powell can tell you that it was a good process 11 years ago. They've refined it, and it'll be a good process again. That's all I've got. Any questions?
Ms. McLeod? Ms. Melnick?
Forgive me if this question was asked before, but is John B. Dye closer to a replacement than a modernization since the cost difference is minimal between Thorogood and John B. Dye?
It's a bigger building. We're doing more with the modernization. People have made the argument, why didn't you just tear the thing down?
Right.
Right? To tear a building down of that size, the building is going to be in excess of 100,000 feet. It would have probably approached, I think, in the 30 to 32 range because it's bigger than Thorogood. So whether it's $4 or $5 or $6 million, it's real money. I say all the time, the building's got good bones. There is no doubt it is harder to show up for 30 months and to keep kids educated and do all we're doing, and you still have parts of now it'll look and feel like a brand new building, but there's still no doubt there's still older parts of the building.
Okay. And I just wanted to say kudos to you and your team for what you do. I know construction is a difficult industry, but I also wanted to thank you for the community involvement, the way you involve the community. Mrs. Ryan and I were part of the initial design phases of Princess Anne Middle School, and it's amazing the people that you include in the planning of those buildings. So thank you, and rock on to our female project manager.
Right, Dawn?
Yeah.
That's right.
There you go.
Yeah, I mentioned Judy Christman and Craig Porkman. Judy joined us as a project manager from the private sector about 6 months ago, and Craig is a PM who's been with the school division for 13 years. So when we moved over to our new digs, we reshuffled the deck a little bit.
Ms. Weems?
Yeah, I want to say too, I agree with Ms. Melnick, and I went to one of the later community inputs at Jomny Dye, and by the time you left there, everybody understood and everybody was just fine with everything. And I know there had been a lot of input, especially with that transportation and the bus. But that last meeting that I went to, you and your team did a great job. Answered everybody's questions and really made the community feel, really at ease that y'all had listened. And I think the 16 schools that you're redoing, the library/media center is great.
It's a cool project.
Because so many of the schools that are waiting for so long to catch up, for the funding, that this is just a great move. So.
We're looking at our kitchen cafeteria propers on a kind of a different thing. So kind of film at 11 there, but same type of thing.
That's a great idea. Thank you for doing that.
Any other questions? Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you all.
Arnold. Okay. Well, next, we have forecasts
We do.
of agenda items.
We do, and get out your pens for doing some markups, because we're gonna have a couple of additions and changes in the 1 yep.
What?
So, I'll wait for everybody to get a copy.
Yeah, that's something.
Okay, so, we left one off of the October 10th workshop, and that is a personnel policy update, and it's really going to be about leave regulations that we need to discuss with you all, our current leave policies and some recommended adjustments to those policies. Actually, to those regulations, not to the policies. Also going to suggest a closed session be added to that 1010 on the disposition of property. And then I understand, and Mr. McDonald, you can confirm this, that the legislative committee had asked that we take the legislative item that is on 1024 and move that to 11.8. Does that sound right?
Correct.
Okay, so we'll make that adjustment. And then, well, you all make that adjustment, this is yours. But anyway, and then what I would recommend then is that we remove the Green Run High School Innovation Grant from that workshop, because that gets pretty crowded. And we would suggest moving that to 1121, where we do think we have some space. We have, you'll notice on 1121 that that's the date scheduled tentatively for the 5-year forecast meeting with the city council. That usually takes place at 3 o'clock and we're done by 4, so we should have some space to add to that workshop agenda. So now the question is, based on those additions and changes, is there anything missing from your perspective in terms of what you've asked us to look at or things that you'd like to take a look at? I heard SAT or ACT updates, and those will come a little bit later, probably in the third. Don, is that right? Typically about the third quarter forecast, we can build those in? Yeah.
1024.
Didn't we,
Is it on for information on this? Yes, it is. I'm sorry, you're right. It is on the 24th.
and didn't we talk earlier about information about our meeting dates?
Yeah, yes, for next.
Be on 10:10.
That would be for the next one under board admin matters. Thank you.
With our move for the legislative committee, it also moves the agenda from action on the 8th to the 21st.
Yeah.
So you want to then shift information down to the 8th.
Correct.
Got you covered.
Thank you.
Anything else? Well, as you all know, this is relatively a fluid document, but we do plan the agendas off of this with you all. So just let us know if you get home and something strikes you as you forgot to mention it. But we'll make the adjustments we've talked about.
Ms. McLeod?
I'm missing something, I'm quite sure. There's a public hearing on December the 5th on the FY19 budget and CIP. I'm missing where the presentation is. Because can they have a public hearing before they've had it presented?
I've done it the same day we used to.
But they don't necessarily know what to comment on.
Right, yeah.
Right, because we actually removed the budget priority workshop. And I think this was post that, right?
Thank you.
Yeah, so we can actually strike that for now, and then
Okay,
we'll look at the
and move
budget.
it- okay.
We'll have the conversation about the budget calendar tonight.
Yeah.
Great,
We'll look
perfect,
when that-
okay.
When that lands.
Thank you.
That's not gonna happen there.
Versus speculation of what we're spending
Yeah,
money on. They
we
might
don't wanna
not comment
speculate.
on what we really will do.
Just comment in general.
Editorial.
Any other questions?
Miss NBC it.
Comments? Okay, I guess we will reconvene at 6 o'clock.
Thank you.
Thank you.